Now, with Transnet Pipelines' recent announcement of direct deliveries of jet fuel to Tambo International Airport and the upcoming maintenance shutdown of the Natref refinery, the spotlight is on fuel costs, availability and the role of supply chain operators in ensuring the sustainability of the aviation sector. Economist Sifiso Skenjana unpacks the importance of these developments and explores the strategies for mitigating jet fuel shortages in the face of evolving global dynamics. Sifiso, appreciate your time this afternoon. Talk to us about the significance of reliable jet fuel supply for the air transport industry. I mean, it's one of those things that we take for granted, but what are the implications of a poor service delivery, or if you will?
Sure, and I think one needs to, understand, some of the drivers of industry development and also some of the kind of network effects as well and multiplier effects that are associated with the aviation industry. Of course, we know that industry has got direct impacts in terms of cargo from an export point of view. It's got direct impact from an inbound and an outbound tourism point of view, as well as, of course, as I said, local travel from a tourism point of view. And so when you look at the existing literature, it shows that certainly, I think, jet fuel availability and demand is directly proportionate, or it's got a positive relationship with economic growth. And so availability, therefore, I guess also it's sustainable availability of jet fuel. It's got positive, association with economic growth. And so when we look at even things like that, we start to understand that lack of availability there can create a supply-side pressure point. And as we've seen even in global, some of the global economies, we saw it in the UK as well as in the US, that then also just created a massive squeeze for that aviation industry. And we are seeing, of course, that is already a constrained industry in a South African context.
Well, there is talk on the planned maintenance, if you will, of Natref in the short term. Now, what are the implications on the local supplies of diesel and fuel on the local market?
Well, I think it's quite an interesting one when we think about, the Natref and the airplane maintenance. If you remember last year after the floods in Durban, there was a challenge there around jet fuel availability when Natref actually had an emergency shutdown because of the damage to some of their pipes. And now this one was a planned, shutdown. What this means is that I think it brings back the role of the network effect that a Transnet can play in being able to augment, shortages that happen on the back of, limited availability from the private sector point of view. And so the ability for Transnet to come in, Transnet Pipelines specifically, using, of course, that MPP24, which is a modernized pipeline that's able to directly deliver jet fuel to Tambo, in addition to some of the work that is coming in, I think, quite interestingly there in terms of feasibility study around, if you just go back, of course, this comes on the back of 1965, when the first kind of Durban-Joburg pipeline was built. And the MPP24 is an update, an upgrade, and when you look at currently in terms of what it is potentially putting in line, there are feasibility studies as well around the Jameson Park 2 directly to Tambo, as well as saying that what do we do with the old pipeline? And this is on the back of thinking about just transitions, is how do we think about stranded assets and recommissioning them for other uses and purposes. And so I think this comes down to all of, the aspirations that are coming from National Treasury when they were talking about the economic strategy around ensuring that we've got competitive network industries, we've got modernized network industries, as well as network industries that can enable growth from a South African economy point of view. And I think this is a positive development that we are seeing where Transnet Pipelines is able to come in and augment, what was an industry supply vacuum that was coming on the back of course, the planned maintenance coming from Natref.
So let's talk about costs, or certainly the reduction in costs that are anticipated. Obviously, if you're running fuel through a pipeline, I'd imagine that the transport cost is largely omitted or is reduced substantially. Can consumers expect to enjoy the introduction of this fuel that is running through this pipeline?
And coming from the MPP24, we've got both grades of diesel, 50 and 500. We've got both grades of petrol, 93, 95. coming through there as well as jet fuel. And so certainly I think having that being able to be transported, I guess, quickly and efficiently is, I think, certainly can create a downward pressure point in terms of fuel price. We haven't done specific, price sensitivities that we expect that it will reduce, I guess, the cost to delivery by X amount, but certainly I think an exercise worth exploring. And that's just one of the things, of course, that we're looking at. Interestingly enough, in this particular pipeline as well, they utilize what they call intelligent pigs, which is a global kind of pipeline integrity management system that can show you very quickly where there is a kind of a breakdown in terms of maintenance, etc. You can quickly get there, but also it can show you then where criminal activity is taking place, where people are siphoning fuel. And so I think it is a lot more intelligent, it is a lot more modern, and I think certainly as we see that, of course, I think the general issue in South Africa is that too much cargo goes on our roads. I think that is 89% of our cargo is on our roads. And so when we've got these effective, infrastructure, projects coming online, they certainly, I think, reduce the burden on road traffic, as well as, of course, I think, as you said, that potentially reduce the cost of delivery to the last user, which is the consumer.
So let's talk about alternative strategies or plans in place to mitigate the impact of the Natref refinery shutdown and obviously maintain an adequate supply of jet fuel in South Africa. Are there things that are being put in place to deal with that?
I mean, as I said, I think, the Natref, plant maintenance, I guess was planned, and so we expected that was going to come off stream. And I think, as I said, is that the ability then for kind of pipelines to come in at the right time to be able, I think, to support some of that capacity shortage. What we're seeing right now is that Transnet Pipelines is delivering at about 1 million liters per hour. And with the additional infrastructure investments that is planned, they can push that capacity to about 3 million liters per hour. I think, and that really, I think, is a confidence boost as well in terms of really the extent to which we can get to a right level of capacity and being able to utilize that pipeline meaningfully to support the demand side as well coming through. And so certainly, I think a continuous investment, I think, in the infrastructure is particularly important. And as I said, there are additional feasibility studies that are currently underway to explore, different, channels of delivery as well. As I said, there is that Jameson Park feasibility currently underway. There is that, stranded asset one as well. And so I think there's a lot currently happening, particularly, I think, at Transnet Pipelines to ensure that they do play, I think, as I said, is that an enabling role for economic growth, as well as, of course, supporting that aviation industry and all of the downstream effects that, lack of availability of fuel, I think, can have in many other adjacent sectors.
And so, finally, are there any innovations or advancements in the pipeline or logistics infrastructure, do you think, that could further enhance the delivery and distribution of jet fuel in South Africa?
As I said, I think, when we're looking at this, I guess, particular context from an infrastructure point of view, there's an inherent need, first and foremost, to continuously invest in the infrastructure because of the impact that it has, I think, on, as I said, adjacent economic sectors. I think in terms of innovations that are coming in, as I said, I think that intelligent pigs piece of work that is embedded in the pipeline design aspects, I think, is really important because it's got the potential to increase the lifeline or the lifespan rather of the pipeline up to 70 years because of the ability for it to have agile, I guess, infrastructure and maintenance, approaches that come through for you to be able to see any, I think, breaks that are happening and be able to fix those quite quickly. And I think these are some of the developments that are happening and coming through in terms of also intelligent use around infrastructure. We are seeing also some interesting developments globally in terms of the use of 5G technologies. We know Ericsson is using that quite well, particularly in the mining space, but it's coming into also bulk infrastructure to be able to certainly reduce levels of risk, as well as improve the quality of infrastructure delivery. So I think there's lots going on in terms of infrastructure innovation that is coming through, and I think it's certainly one of the things that we'll continue exploring as we deeply invest, I think, in iterative infrastructure investments, particularly as a network industry.
Economist Sifiso Skenjana speaking to us about the reliability of jet fuel supply, just how crucial it is. Appreciate your time this afternoon.